photo. Well, we'll start here. We'll do this photo as we normally do, if you want to.
Okay.
So let me try to describe. I'll describe this photo. If you want to describe the what you best you can on this photo here, is that okay?
Yeah, okay, I
The
will
other way
try.
around if you want, I don't mind. But okay, well, okay, I'll do this one then. Here we go. So I'll give them an introduction first of all. So hello, here we go again. So this is our photo related to our article today, and we get onto the article. But this photo is very interesting. So we see it looks like all men. I say that because I can see most of them seem to have beards. This guy has a beard. So does this guy. This one over here has a beard too. But these other ones, like younger men or even boys, and they're all dressed up in what looks like almost like leather. It's definitely military looking because I can see this guy has an axe, a very, very well shiny and a wonderfully looking axe. But also, I've never seen anyone in military gear with wings at the back here. But I think there may have been some people, oh, I forgot what they were called, perhaps a couple of hundred years ago, several hundred years ago, perhaps in the times when we had knights in armor. There were some people on the continent who used to have these sort of wings on their backs like this, and maybe they're similar. I would guess that this dates back to well over 300 or 400 years. I don't think these sorts of soldiers marched around in the last 300 or 400 years. So sometime before 1600, I would guess, looking at this. But there are aspects to it which the their metal looks a bit too shiny to be 1,000 years old. I don't think in 1,000 years ago they would have had such fine looking clothes. I don't look quite so nice. I don't think the axes would be quite so polished and the wood so well finished. So I think this is from the photo, I would say at maximum 400 years ago this was based on. Obviously, this is a modern photo. So that's my thinking there. Did you have anything you wanted to add at all, Ruslan? Any sort of things that you've noticed about this photo? Or any sort of weird, strange things you want to say? Or anything interesting?
At the moment, no.
No,
Yeah.
that's good. Also, I can see there's this line on the road here. This is typical for the British roads. This is a hazard warning line down the middle of the road. So they're obviously in the street or in the road marching. So it's some sort of festival from the photo. I know the title of the photo, so I have a good idea already. So Ruslan, I think you're going to look at this one. So I'd make it slightly bigger, might make it a bit easier for you. Anything you want to say about that?
Yeah. It's this is picture show us uh, some some parade, yeah, and people worn the uh, people worn the uh,
They're
costume. No, can I
they're
as
wearing their
the
uniforms or
yeah
costumes. Yeah.
uniforms and or costume, yeah, and they held a shield, yeah. Everyone held a shield, and
Hmm.
uh, uh, behind them the sea,
Hmm.
yeah, and some people who are standing on a dragon boat keeps axe, yeah,
Hmm. Yeah, I can see axes. Yeah, there we go.
axes, yeah, and yeah, I think in this way they want to show another people that they remember about some events, yeah,
Mm.
which was in the past.
Mm.
And yeah, I think they are doing it only once in a year.
Mm.
Just I think like this, yeah. And around we can see a lot of people
Mhm.
who like them, yeah, and yeah, they support them, yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
So these other people could be tourists, or they could be
yeah.
the family of the guys who are sitting down here or in the boat. That's true. Yeah, so I can see a flag, and often a flag is used to symbolize something or other, perhaps the nation they come from. But as I look at that flag there, it seems to be something like a bird. And so it doesn't really, and it's not obvious to me what nation that might be or what sort of force they represent. I sort of know, in a way, I sort of know what the answer is to some of these questions, but just looking at the photo and trying to work it out, it's quite tricky. One thing that struck me is, so it's not a very big boat, and I severely doubt all of these men would fit into that boat. If they did, the boat would sink, I suspect. But also
Mm,
that the sail is very small. I can't see that catching much wind and sort of moving the boat very far. So thinking about it, I think this is a very small boat in comparison to what might have been used in reality, I think.
yeah, I think so.
Although the sea looks fairly rough back there, so it must look like a lot of fun. Anyway, so I know that this is a photo from the Shetland Islands or the Shetland Isles in the UK, North Scotland. So let's flick over to the article itself to see what that can tell us. Here we go. Here we go. So this seems to be the name of the festival. Heliar, I pronounce that Heliar Fire Festival. So crowds gather in Shetland for Up Heliar Fire Festival. So the proper part of the name seems to be Up Heliar Fire Festival. That's how I would say there. So the event takes place in Lerwick on the last Tuesday of January each year and attracts visitors from around the globe. Okay, that's another photo. I guess they're marching in the road here, as we saw before. And here's the text. But let's go down to that photo. That's the first photo looked at. There's some of the kids. And there's an older guy with a really big, happy smile on his face. And some more photos. But and this guy, you can really see the wings on his back there, can't you? Okay. So I would guess, but I think I might be wrong. I would guess that these were pretending to be Vikings.
Yeah,
Viking. Have you heard of
it can be.
Vikings?
Yeah, I heard.
Hmm. So let me just search the word Vikings on the screen and see if it says actual Viking. Oh yeah, there we go. So it does mention Vikings. So it says dressed as Vikings. So yeah, they must be dressed as Vikings. If you look at some of the older films about Vikings, they sometimes show their helmets as having horns on their helmets, but there's no horns here, is there? So I don't know how realistic having horns on the helmets is, but these are definitely no horns on these ones. I'm pretty sure it's unrealistic to have horns on the mountain on tops of the helmets. Okay, so I've read a little bit there, and we both had a practice trying to describe those photos. So there isn't much to read here. Do you fancy having a quick read of these little bits here? This little bit
Mhm.
here.
Yeah,
Okay, over to
okay.
you then.
Okay. Crowds have gathered in Shetland for the world-famous Up Helly Fire Festival. The annual events takes place in Lerwick on the last Tuesday of January and attracts visitors from around the globe. The much loved festival sees people dressed as Viking, Vi- Vikings march through the streets of the town to recreate its ancient past. In tradition dating back to the 19th century, the work is led by the Juza Jar or chiefs Giza and culminates in torch elite procession and the burning of a replica longboat.
Mm. Yes, very good. Very good. So this last bit you just read out, I don't know how to pronounce this name, but I think you pretty much said it as I would say. So something like Giza Jal, I would guess, but I don't know to be honest. Um, but it says about having a torch-lit procession. Do you know what that is? Do you know what a torch-lit
No.
procession is? So a torch is, if you put you with your phone, you can switch the torch on. If you're in the dark, you can hit a button on your phone, and it makes the torch come on. A light
Um,
comes out the phone, so you can see where you are in the dark.
okay.
So that's a torch, yes? When I say a torch, you know what that is?
Yeah, it is like a stick, yeah, and the
That's
end of the
that's what they're talking
stick.
about here. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
So this is a stick with something on the end that is burning and
Yeah.
making light, and it's incredibly bright and hot. And it can be quite hot too, of course. So this is a torch lit procession. So all of these men, this at night time, this would be, are probably walking down the road or the street or on the dock or the quayside here by the sea, and they would each of them or most of them would have one of these torches that was on fire. And
Okay.
when they're in procession, that means they're marching one after the other down the road. That's what a procession is, a procession. So if you proceed down the road, it means you're going down the road slowly. But if it's a procession, it means you're doing it on purpose, probably marching, and there's probably a group of you for fun. This is in this case. Does that make sense? So a torchlit
Okay.
procession. So they're marching down the road at night with these lamps that are burning all together. So it looks really quite impressive, I'd have thought. But then with those burning torches or burning pieces of wood,
Yeah.
um, and the burning of a replica longboat. Does that make sense to you, that last little bit there?
No, last one I didn't catch.
Okay. So when it says longboat, there is the boat at the back here. This is a longboat. That's the particular name of it. It's not a dragon boat or something. It looks a little
Okay.
bit like a dragon on the front if I go to that photo again. It looks a bit dragony, but this is it's just sort of I think for good luck. The thing they have on the front of the boat or the prow of the boat is really it's like something like a good luck symbol.
Okay.
Like a god or something like that. I think it's a little bit not we're not really clear what it is, but it is symbolic and it is to ward off evil spirits, we think. But the boat itself we refer to it as a long boat because they are quite long and narrow.
Yeah,
And when it says
okay.
replica, any idea what replica means?
A
Replica.
replica. Mm,
If
no.
you replicate something, do you know if you replicate something, do you know what that means? I'm going to replicate this piece of paper.
This means
Replicate
like a
this document.
copy.
Yeah,
Like,
that's it. Yeah, that's it. You've got it.
okay.
So this is a replica longboat. So in other words, this isn't an original one that they really used hundreds or thousands of years ago. This is one we've made recently to the same
Okay.
design, and so it looks
Yeah.
roughly like it, as best we think anyway.
And probably it is just created for the event, not just to fly
I think it
on.
will float. It would float, I believe.
Oh, it
I
would
believe it's a
float.
proper boat, it will float. But I wouldn't
Hmm.
want to sail around in it, to be honest. But the thing,
Okay.
the main thing is what happens is they set this boat on fire. I think it's in the water they do it. So they set the boat on the water, and
Oh,
all of them throw their burning lit torches into the boat so that it catches fire, into the longboat, I should say. And it's
yeah,
at night, and it's a massive fire.
on a
It's
sea, yeah.
quite a spectacle to see.
Okay.
Which is
Yeah.
why, if you go back to the title again, it says uh, crowds gather in Shetland for Up Hella Our Fire Festival. That's why it says fire, because they're going to burn the thing. It is really, it's worth if you're in Scotland, it's worth going to see it. But I've never seen them dressed up like this before, not quite like this before. This seems quite. I've not seen that, to be honest, that outfit. Okay, so let's scroll down a bit further. That's the little kids dressed up too. And they do this once a year. They don't do it monthly or something. It's just once a year. This is an older guy, same guy. I can read this little bit here. So it says, volunteers are responsible for the building of the galley. And when I say galley, that's another name for a boat. A galley is an old name, a very old name for a boat. So it's the boat we were talking
Okay.
about. And it says galley boat. And the production of more than 1,000 torches. So all of these torches get
Okay.
thrown into the boat, or as far as I'm aware, they get thrown into the boat anyway. And obviously, it sets the whole thing on fire. In the evening, there will be a host of celebrations in halls around the town. So, what will the celebrations be? I don't know. This guy's having a drink, so maybe it's to do with drinking. I don't know. This is the guy on the prow of the boat. So the prow being the front, and we're at the end of the story. Oh, not quite at the end. Okay, not far off though. We'd like to this last little bit here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shetland and neighboring Orkney were ruled by the Norse for about 500 years until they became part of Scotland in 1468.
Hmm.
The festival stems from 1870 when a group of local men wanted to put new ideas into Shetland's Christmas celebration.
So they're saying that what they do there is actually part of their Christmas celebrations.
Yes.
That's amazing. But it's only relatively new. It's over 100 years old, I guess. But in the 1870s. So when you read it out, you sort of missed off that S.
Ah, yeah,
So
okay.
when it says S on the end there, and it's next to a number like that, or a date, I should say, it's really saying at some point in that decade. So in that roughly that 10-year period, they came up with this idea. Maybe they did it at the middle or the beginning or the end. We don't know exactly.
Oh,
Or it just started over a period of time, maybe. So let me just read that last paragraph for you again. So the festival stems from the 1870s when a group of local men wanted to put new ideas into Shetland's Christmas celebrations. Okay. So the S, don't forget the S. And also, so this word here is stems. When it says stems, do you know what that means or any idea?
Thames, mm, no, I don't know, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you might have an idea. So if something stems
Thames,
from
it's just
something else,
like a walk, yeah.
Not really. Um,
Uh,
there's a couple of
j-
ways you can use this word. You know, if you have some flowers, if you're giving flowers to your girlfriend or to your wife or partner,
yeah, okay.
you don't just give them the flower, do you? Like there's just a bit of a rose. They're on a long stick, aren't they? That stick that the flower or the rose or whatever it is on the end, the beautiful flower on the end, that is on a long stick. And that stick is called the stem. The stem of the
Okay,
rose is the long stick that leads up to it. A bit of wood, basically, isn't it? But of course,
okay.
with the it may also be on another flower too. So you might just say that a daffodil has a stem as well, I guess. So that's in that sense. But in this sense here, it's saying you could say starts from. That might be another
Ah,
word you could put in there.
start.
Starts from.
Okay.
So the festival started or starts from the 1870s when a group of blah, 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 blah. But
Mm-hmm.
so when it comes to the flower, you could say that the flower grows from the stem or it starts from the stem, that sort of a thing. So it's same idea, really. The stem and start has the same idea in it, or is the
Mm-hmm.
same idea. That's what I think of anyway. Do you fancy just reading that once more, that little bit there?
Yeah,
So
okay.
stems and 1870s. There you go.
The festival the festival stems from the 1870s when a group of local men wanted to put new ideas into Setland's Christmas celebration.
Yeah, that's it. Really good. Very, very good. So let me read this one up here for it now. This one here. So this one reads Shetland. So that's the island. Well, it's a group of islands really, and there's some people call them the Shetlands, which is I don't think they really like that. They like to be called the Shetland Isles. And that's
Okay,
similarly, so this and the word Orkney, that's another group of islands which are close to the Shetland Isles. So an Orkney is often normally referred to as as the Orkney Isles. But some people do
okay,
just say, "Oh, the Orkneys. I'm going on holiday to the Orkneys," or something. Some people might say that, but the people who live in Orkney, they want to be referred to as the Orkney Isles. So there are lots of little islands. It might be, I don't know how many it is. Let's say 50 little islands, some big, some small. So let me just read it again then. So Shetland and neighbouring Orkney were ruled by the Norse for about 500 years until they became part of Scotland in 1468. And I think you read that very well, actually. So that's what Shetland and Orkney are. That's the name of the islands, which are up at the north part of Scotland, sort of a thing. The, they're a bit sort of remote and they're quite sort of get battered by the wind and the waves. So there's this word here I've highlighted. Any idea what that means? That word, it says Norse. That's exactly how you pronounce it.
Norse.
It's
Yeah.
good pronunciation, I think there. Any
Mm,
idea what it means though, what it
by the
is?
Norse, it is probably uh,
Mm.
city, some city, no?
It's a good guess actually, because it starts with a capital N and sort of names have a capital letter, don't they? So a good guess. But it might be ruled by another city. So it's a good try. But really, when you see Norse, it's another word really for the Vikings. It's another word for the Vikings. Oops, let me just close that page.
Okay.
So they have a couple of different names, and I think they're sort of I think Vikings is the I've put Vikings on the screen. I think this is a relatively new name that we've come up with in the last few hundred years or something. But more originally, at the time, they were called the Norse people. Norse. And really, this sort of basically means north. The people that came from the north. That's really all it
People who came
means.
from the north. Okay.
Yes. And they sort of attacked. They're known for just attacking for a lot of the time, really. But they also did a lot of trading. They were very interested in trading and sort of, animal pelts for gold and whatever. Have you
Mm-hmm.
ever heard of the Vikings and the Norse before? Ever heard of them?
Yes, I heard about Vikings and I watched
Vikings, yeah.
the video, yeah, of
Oh yeah.
Vikings.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think they go up the Volga, I think, Volga River at one point, and I think they even have been to Moscow, and they've been to, I think, Baghdad. I think they've found Norse coins in Baghdad. So they've been all over the sort of the sort of near part of the world where we are here in Europe. And on top of that, they say they've also found Viking settlements, small ones in North America, besides Greenland and Iceland, of course. So it turns out that the Vikings discovered America, or Canada, I think it was actually, before we did, whatever that means. Does that make sense? So,
Mm.
any idea when the Vikings, when they existed or when they were around? 'Cause we haven't really said when they lived, really. Any idea?
It's difficult to answer.
Well, there's a
Yeah,
date on the screen.
yeah, but it
Yeah.
is, yeah.
Mm.
They were a part of Scotland, yeah.
It mentions Scotland here, and Shetland and Orkney became part of Scotland in this year. So they're sort of saying that they left the Vikings' possessions, you might say, at that time. So you could say that was the last time that the Vikings had possession of Orkney and Scotland, and Shetland. Does that make sense?
Ah, yeah, it was last time, but before,
So yeah.
yeah, the Vikings were there, yeah, and
Mm.
they were in a church there, yeah.
Yeah, so basically what this little bit here is saying was that the Vikings were in charge of
Yeah,
of Shetland and Orkney for about 500 years,
500
roughly
years
that sort
ago.
of time,
Oh,
and
yeah,
and they give an exact year when they handed it
yeah,
over to
mm,
Scotland. I have an idea that Scotland actually they paid money for those islands, I think. I think I might, or it might have been there was a battle and the Vikings lost and as a result of when they negotiated it, they handed over Shetland and Orkney to the Scottish. Can't remember the exact details now because it
oh,
was 500 years ago.
okay, yeah.
Well, more than
It,
500 years ago. Does that make sense, what we said there?
yeah, it is means they control, yeah,
Mm,
this land, yeah,
mm, mm,
500 years ago, yeah, and then
mm.
Scotland became, oh no, then Shetland and Orkney became part of Scotland, yeah, but
Yes.
I don't understand in which way they. I want to know about
Mm,
which negotiations they had, and they should pay money for it, or
mm.
they
What
forced.
happened?
Yeah.
I have an idea that the it was a long, drawn out battle, I think. I might be mixing things up here, but I believe that the Vikings were trying to get Scotland to perhaps give them money or give them
Yeah.
more land, but the battle went badly for the Vikings, and Scotland basically won the battle. I think it was more of a sea battle, largely a
Yeah.
sea
Okay.
battle. And as I think as a result of it, Orkney and Shetland ended up being given back to Scotland. So what we could do is we could search that though. If we just look up, copy that. Let's put it into the word pad here. What's our question we want to make? So how did how did Scotland get Shetland and neighbouring Orkney? I just search that maybe. How about that? I'm searching Bing here. So how Orkney and Shetland became part of Scotland. So I don't think it's going to open there, is it? Oh, it has opened. Here we go. So Scotland acquired Shetland and Orkney through a series of historical events. The islands were initially under Norwegian control, but local Scottish influence grew from the late 1800s onwards. So it's going back more than 1,000 years now. In 1468, and was that our year?
Yeah.
1468 it is, isn't it? So in 1468, Margaret, daughter of King Christian I of Norway, married James III of Scotland, pledging Orkney and Shetland as security for her dowry. After the dowry was not paid, the islands were formally annexed by Scotland in 1472. So the process involved negotiations and the eventual acceptance of the islands by the Scottish Crown, despite the lack of formal repayment. This historical context highlights the complex relationship between Scotland and the Shetland and Orkney Islands. So my understanding here is that it's this vital bit here where this lady married a king of Scotland, James III, and often at that time, when a lady got married, you had to give a gift called a dowry. That's why I mentioned the word dowry there somewhere. Does it mention that? Yeah, dowry, which is basically a gift, a marriage gift. But the gift didn't turn up, and sort of the insurance was the islands of Orkney and Scotland, as I take it to mean. Does that make sense? And they ended up taking the insurance, you might say, the insurance payout. But
This means instead,
instead, yeah, you could say that
instead
instead.
of
So
the.
instead of the dowry, they got Orkney and Shetland.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Now
So I was completely
it's
wrong with what
clear.
I said. Yeah, I'm glad you corrected me there. So let's read. Well, we could read it again, I guess. Let's have a look at this other one. Substack. This is Substack. That can be quite useful. So this is one person's opinion on Substack, I guess. I hope they don't mind. It mentions Norway again, Denmark, Scandinavian. Oh, so it mentions Norse here, so that's the Vikings. So it looks like quite a lot to read, but it does mention Margaret and James III again. So it seems to back up what we just read with the AI. Yeah, it seems to be backing up what AI says, doesn't it? Yeah, okay, we'll go along with that. So the thing I was saying about that, I think there was a battle, a sea battle that still happened, but it wasn't over Shetland and Orkney. I was completely mistaken there, completely wrong. So hopefully someone might know the answer to what I was referring to and correct me. So if we go back to the first little bit, maybe I'll read that bit this time because you read it to start with up here. You read this bit to start with. So again, I don't know exactly how to pronounce this. So Uphellia Fire, I would pronounce that as Uphellia Fire Festival. So my turn to read it now. So crowds have gathered in Shetland for the world famous Uphellia Fire Festival. The annual event takes place in Lerwick on the last Tuesday of January and attracts visitors from around the globe. The much-loved festival sees people dressed as Vikings march through the streets of the town to recreate its ancient past in a tradition dating back to the 19th century. The walk is led by Geezer Jarl or Chief Geezer and culminates in a firelit procession and the burning of a replica longboat. Anything you want to ask about that as words at all, or anything you want to ask about that in general?
Uh, yes.
Hmm.
Do you have some idea of what it can, how we can translate, or what it is like a Helly eye? It is name of something,
Yeah,
how,
this
or
seems
what?
to be the name of the festival. It to me, it doesn't really mean anything, to be honest. So let me just search it maybe. Searching on Bing, that's what it comes up with Bing. So again, it's here they're showing that part of the fire festival. So it
Yes.
looks like the same
Okay.
men, but see how their outfits are different. They've got different outfits this year. Okay,
Outfit.
so
Yeah.
they're like fur to me, and the helmets look completely different. This is what I normally think of them being dressed up as, and clearly they've got lots of fire here too, haven't they? So up, He- up Hella, up Hellier is Scotland's fiery celebration marking the end of Yule. So Yule is another word for Christmas, really, is old
Mm,
English word for Christmas, featuring torch-lit processions and burning of I guess that's Viking. I can't see that. I can't see that. I think I'm off the edge of the page. I can't seem to scroll over somehow. Try to scroll, it won't work. Okay, never mind. Um, oh, well, what does it mean? So let's click on this. This is the Wikipedia article. Let's see what Wikipedia says about it. So Giza, that same name again, redirects here. And I wasn't expecting this, and I don't know. I might be mispronouncing that. So up Helia, literally up Holy Day. Ah, they're saying it means no. It's like Christmas time, so they're saying it
okay.
means up Holy Day. So Helly is holy, and
Holy.
means day somehow. I don't know how. Up Holy Day. Okay. It's the type of fire festival held annually from January to March. That's a long period of time, isn't it?
Mm,
In various communities in Shetland, Scotland, to mark the end of Yule, and Yule's basically Scotland. So Christmas, it says there. Season. Each festival involves a torchlit procession by squads of costumed participants known as, I guess that's geezers, but we must have to check that word really, that culminates in the burning of an imitation Viking longboat. So we said before it was replica. Do you remember that? And they're now saying
yeah.
imitation. So really, those
Um,
two words are something similar
yeah.
meaning.
Imitation. Yeah.
So an
I
imitation is
understand.
like a fake one. It's like basically like a fake one because it
Mm-hmm.
won't be an original one because they lived more than 1,000 years ago. We won't be burning an original Viking boat. But to say replica sounds a bit better than saying imitation one somehow. If something's an imitation, it's an imitation diamond. You don't know one wants an imitation diamond, really, do they? You want the
Yeah.
real one, don't you? But we're never going to burn a real Viking boat. So replica sounds a lot better. So the largest festival is held in Lerwick, Shetland's capital, and involves a procession of up to 1,000 geezers. It's probably geysers or something really, who march through the streets of Lerwick on the last Thursday in January. The other the other rural festivals, known as the Country Up Helios, see lower numbers of participants in accordance with their lower populations. because all of the different islands have different people living on them and smaller numbers and bigger numbers in the capital. So obviously there'd be more different numbers, won't there? So let me just search that word geysers or geysers. Let's put it into the oh, here we go. Youglish. We've looked at Youglish before. That can be really useful for looking up strange words like this. So I've put in the word geysers or geysers. Let's see what happens. Comes up with. And there's only 3 instances of it on YouTube according to this that we've searched anyway. Radical inclusion and tales from player symposium. I don't know what that is. And it says here torch lit, so it's obviously the same thing, isn't it? Ah, got a little video of it here.
Visitations and culminating in a torch-lit procession where the Guzlers form a circle around the galley and in preparation for sending the galley to Valhalla.
Which is like heaven.
The most popular version says that Las Fallas comes from a century-old tradition in which the city's carpenters would burn old materials they didn't need on the day before the day of St. Joseph. It's the patron saint of carpenters.
So that's Spain talking about
This
now.
has grown to incorporate 400 neighborhoods in Valencia, Spain, organizing all year long with fundraisers, parties, dinners to create works of art.
So that's another one. So let's go back to this one.
Visitations and culminating in a torch-lit procession where the Guzlers form a circle around the galley.
Let's go on to the next one. What's the next one there? And the rest are called Guzlers. Guzlers, you're saying?
And the rest are called geysers, and they're dressed in all sorts of costumes. They're kind of forming like a band of about a dozen or more people around certain themes. And all these different squads go to the halls and perform an act. And so we just saw someone do a haka versus like a Scottish version of a haka. Someone else dressed up as the Blues Brothers. And these acts keep coming in.
Let's play that again.
And the rest
He
are
said
called geysers, and they're dressed in all sorts of costumes. They're kind of forming like.
So he said geysers. Let's go on for the third one.
So the rest of them are known as geysers, which is a word that derives
Oh,
from the same word as to wear a disguise.
geysers. So he's saying geysers come from the word disguise. Did you hear him say that?
Uh, yeah,
That,
this
that
guy.
sort of makes sense. Yeah. So we weren't quite sure how to pronounce that strange word up here. I was saying it might be geysers or geezers or something. And I think both two men said it was geysers, and the other person said it was something else. So I think we'll go with the geysers or geezers, something like that. So, but I've never seen the word before, so that's our best guess anyway. So that's that word, right? So it means
It means this
up.
this guy guys is
Yeah,
okay.
that's what they're saying. It's something like disguise. Yeah, so geyser in disguise, disguise. That's where he's saying it might come from. He thinks it came from that disguise, geyser. It's just a word, though. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Okay,
But it's pro
it is yeah, it is probably people wear it, yeah, to hide the faces, yeah.
I think if you go back to the photos, you
Yeah.
you could say everything they're wearing is a disguise. Is a
Ah, this it
disguise.
is, but it is looks like a
Everything.
protection,
Yeah,
of
but they're pretending to be warriors, and warriors wore protection, didn't they?
yeah,
So they
okay,
wouldn't be. So if they had a sword hit them, they might be protected a little bit. Which
okay.
is this guy's got armor on his chest, hasn't he? That metal sheeting there is called armor, isn't it? Didn't
Y-
the Roman centurions had that a couple of thousand years ago? Something similar. Segmentata. Is it called segmentata? I think. Or, armor. Because it's little segments. Segmentata, I think it is. Okay, I think we're almost there, really, aren't we? So I think we said that. So Lerwick is the capital of the Shetland Isles, I think. Just as the capital of Orkney is another name, is another place, but I can't quite remember. So it says the globe there, so that's another word for the earth, of course. So the visitors come from all around the earth, you could say, all around the planet even.
Globe.
Yeah, the globe. So they're dressed as Vikings.
Yeah, they dress as the Vikings. Yeah, and March, March. Yeah, it is March.
Yeah, marching. So we said about procession. So a march and a procession, the same sort of thing, same sort of thing. But if you say
Okay.
march, it sounds much more like an army because mainly it's just
Mm.
armies that march. I suppose the police might march, or you might get a band that marches in time together. But normally it's an army thing, isn't it? But a procession could be a procession of nuns or something, couldn't it, really? You'd never get nuns, sort of religious nuns, marching. It sounded a bit strange. Although they might march, I suppose. But so it creates an idea in your mind, doesn't it? Anything else that's interesting you want to ask about?
Yeah. Uh, yeah, replica longboat. It is means that
Mm,
yeah exactly copied but
mm.
yeah
Yeah, that's it basically. Yes. And in the Wikipedia article, it didn't say replica, it said imitation, didn't it?
imitation. Yeah,
So it's basically
imitation.
the same sort of idea. An imitation, a replica, same sort of thing, really.
Yeah, and it is real. Yeah, as I understand.
It's a
It
real boat. It will float. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it will
But it
float.
is made to be burnt. So you probably couldn't sail it for a year or something. It's probably not very well made, but it's good enough to float, I suppose.
Okay. Yeah,
If
and
you if you're gonna burn the boat as soon as you put it on the water, you probably won't spend, thousands and thousands of
yeah,
pounds making
yeah,
sure it's watertight. It only has to hold there for half a day or something without sinking. But maybe
yeah.
I'm wrong. Maybe they do get a lot more of it than I think. Yeah, you were going to
Yeah,
say something.
yeah, did this event created by cost volunteers or
Yeah,
I'm mistaken?
yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, so these are just townsfolk, people who live in the towns,
Yeah,
and they decided to do it.
it is civil people. Yeah, we can say like this.
Yeah, yeah, just civilians. Yeah, they're not
Yeah,
military in any
civilians
way.
who are uh, interesting to take the part in this event. Yeah, and
Mm, mm. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Yes. Um, having said that, if I just scroll through again some of these photos, what you'll find is, so all of these people live on these relatively small islands called the Shetland
okay.
Islands or Isles. And it's quite likely so that these people have several different jobs that they may run a shop or something, but they may also be in the fire service. So if someone's house burns down, so they might run
Okay.
to that. And this person behind, they might be in the police force, and also they do this marching around just to make the town look good. So in other words, there's very much a bit more of a community. Everyone works together a bit more.
Yeah,
Because if they didn't, the island wouldn't be successful.
yeah.
Really, everybody has to pull together on these islands, really, and they generally do. And I think people have much more of a community feeling, and they work together. And I suppose they probably came up with this idea of pretending
Mm,
to be Vikings, basically, just to
yeah.
make it more interesting, to make something for visitors to see.
Yeah, I wonder
Mm.
if they had a rehearse before the
Oh, I'm
event.
sure. Well, when we looked at when we were trying to work out how to pronounce that word, where's that word again? I must have closed the page. I can't seem to find it here. Oh, what's that?
Sorry,
You remember we looked up the word geezers and we listened to this? So if we go back another one, if we go back to
And the rest are called geysers, and they're dressed in all
geysers. So this one, I think
oh,
it was. Was it this one here?
Visitations and culminating in a torch-lit procession where the Goozlers
Goose.
form a circle around the galley
No, it was the next one. Let's go to the
and in
next one.
preparation for
We'll go to this video here. Now
and
he's
the rest are called geysers, and they're dressed up in all sorts of costumes. They're kind of forming like a band of about a dozen or more people around certain themes. And all these different squads go to
here
the
we go.
halls and perform an act. And so we just saw someone do a haka versus like a Scottish version of a haka. Someone else dressed up as the Blues Brothers, and these acts keep coming in. It's going to go all night until 8 in the morning. There'll be about 100 groups that come through, and
That,
for the rest of the people, you just sit down, watch. There's drinks back there, there's food over here, and everyone's having a good time.
yeah, so to my mind, all of this has to be prepared, practice. You can't just do it off the spur of the moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure this is all prepared. I don't doubt it. So this is Scottish dancing, I
Mm.
think. Or Scottish music anyway. It's classic Scottish music there.
Have you ever been to Scottish?
Scotland, a good number
Scotland.
of times. Yeah, a good number of times. Yes, yeah,
Oh.
lots of times. It's well worth going to. It's there's not many people live in Scotland, I would say. So I think more people live in London than live in the whole of Scotland. So it's I would say
Mm.
sparsely populated, but there are big open spaces where there's nobody living there as such. If that makes any sense. Um, I was going to search the word Vikings, so maybe look at some photographs of Vikings. So obviously these are modern day Vikings. We don't have any ancient photographs of Vikings, of course, because they lived well over 1,000 years ago, and sort of faded out, I think you might say. So these are some sort of representations of what we think the Vikings might have looked like. So I think this is probably quite accurate here, what we're seeing here. So these are from some modern day films, I think, aren't they? Looking at these pictures. So they've got big round shields, and
Yeah.
they're wearing some wearing leather. Most of them have got spears. I can see a lady there. I think that's a lady there. They may have had lady. I think they probably did have ladies, didn't they, fighting? But I don't know for certain. Is a king, I think here. I don't know if there's a Viking king or not. So yeah, there we go. There's definitely a lot of films where they're sort of just guessing what they look like, and it's probably not very accurate. But your guess is as good as mine as what they really look like. But I think this is a little bit over the top what they're wearing here, to be honest. But I don't know what they wore. This is a modern day variation, I would guess, what they're wearing there.
What do you think? Is it possible that they could
Hmm.
ride on a horse? Yeah, and have a fight uh, like on a
On
horse,
horseback.
horseback, yeah.
They're not
Or
known. They weren't known for that at all. They were known for moving about on boats or in boats, I should say. Um, but I'm sure if they had a need to, they would learn how to
mm,
ride a horse and travel on that. I should
yeah,
think. I don't
yeah.
think they have any trouble with learning it like anybody else. But they're very famous for going up rivers, long rivers, and founding a city there or a town there. Some have suggested, I don't know if what the truth of this is, one way or the other. I heard this one person I have heard suggested that the Russian capital was
Mhm.
founded by Vikings. Have you heard that at
Really?
all? But I
Mm,
don't know if that's true. I'm just saying it's a part of all that one thing
mm,
I've heard. So
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
okay.
You mean is it Russian capital? Yeah, Moscow
Well,
was
that's what.
founded by a
No, I'm not saying that
Viking.
as a fact. I'm not
Yeah,
saying it as a fact.
okay.
It's one thing that I've heard said, and I think it was just literally one person that was saying that.
Hmm.
So I'm not saying it's a fact or anything, 'cause I don't know. But they're sort of known to have been great explorers, travelled quite some long distances. They certainly went to Russia. I think no one really doubts that they went to Russia, but exactly what they did there, I don't know.
Yeah.
because we picked this article out by chance, really, haven't we? We haven't sort of studied it beforehand. Right. Okay. So maybe perhaps we'll end the recording bit there, the official recording bit.